By the end of this video, you're going to learn the one simple change that will unlock 50% more power in your shots without having to hit the gym or exerting your muscles so much that you can hardly walk after playing. Actually, as a matter of fact, I feel like my body is even more fresh after a 2-hour session when I use this unique way of utilizing this natural phenomenon in my muscles to hit incredibly powerful shots. Well, who am I? My name is Jabron and I've played tennis for 20 years. I walked onto a D1 team, trained under players that were top 10 players in the world, and lived at a world-class academy for a year. But after quitting the sport for a few years, I decided to come back to it in 2023 with a mission to discover how to improve my game as fast as possible and find out my fullest potential after getting stuck and seeing no progress at a certain level for years before I quit the game. Not only have I dramatically improved my own technique in the last year, but I've also enhanced the technique of my students using the learning systems I've created, paired with a modern elastic-based swing technique that no one is talking about, yet anyone can master, like my student who's only been playing tennis for just a year and a half. But first, you need to understand this about energy creation, or none of this is really going to make any sense at all. So there are multiple ways to create energy, and they're all totally valid. The first one is you can just have your chest and your deltoid contract, and that's going to give you an arm-based swing. The second way is to push, load, push, unload with your legs. So I call that a push-load leg-based swing, or a ground force reaction, okay? Because that's what you're doing with that. And the third type is pull, stretch, pull, stretch, pull, stretch, or what I like to call an elastic-based swing, which uses elastic energy. And that's going to utilize the natural elasticity in your muscles. And to create energy most efficiently with the highest output for the least input, elastic energy is the way to go. So stick around until the end, and I'm going to reveal the secret that took my elastic-based swing to the next level and fully maximize the stored energy it creates. So, you might be sitting there wondering, bro, is this based on pseudoscience or is it real hard cold science? Well, I'll tell you this, an elastic-based swing takes advantage of the scientifically proven stretch shortening cycle, or SSC for short. So what is the stretch shortening cycle? Well, it's the natural muscle action that occurs when a muscle, oh my god, love that. It's the natural muscle action that occurs when a muscle lengthens, the eccentric contraction, right? And then immediately shortens, or the concentric contraction, right? So it's eccentric, concentric, and that's your SSC. It's one of the most common muscle actions when you're moving, and it can be seen in many sports, such as basketball, football, hockey, weightlifting, golf, and of course, tennis. So, the incredible part of this natural phenomenon and why you need to pay attention to it if you want to generate more power without having to hit the gym and building bigger muscles. Have you ever wondered how some golf players are so skinny, yet they're hitting bombs that are consistently traveling like 320 yards? Or how some skinny tennis players, even with skinny chicken legs, and you know who I'm talking about, can rocket a ball 100 miles per hour. Well, that's where the incredible effects of the stretch shortening cycle come into play. A key feature of SSCs is the increase in muscular force and work during the concentric phase of an SSC by more than 50% compared with concentric muscle actions without a prior stretch. So if you stretch and then contract, it's going to be 50% harder versus if I had no stretch and contracted, okay? And this is because the stored elastic energy in the muscles during this stretch phase contributes to a stronger and more explosive contraction, leading to a greater power and speed in your movements. And I know exactly what you're thinking, and you're exactly right. To get 50% more power output from your muscles, all you need to do is put them in a stretch just before you contract the muscle. Can anyone use the stretch shortening cycle to improve their tennis game, or is it only for advanced tennis players? Well, guess what? Anyone can use it. Anyone can use the stretch shortening cycle to improve their tennis game, regardless of their skill level. And in fact, I actually feel that beginners can benefit significantly by learning to use their muscles more efficiently from the start. I actually also find it easier for beginners to start using an elastic-based swing because typically they're just using an arm contraction-based swing, and they really just have to make one simple change. Instead of pulling their arm, they just pull their hip and it pulls the arm. And so they've already got that arm stuck out. It's pretty simple, right? Now for an advanced player who's using a push load swing with their legs, they can also learn it. It just may take a bit more time to conceptualize doing it this way to create energy. But I was someone who once had a push load swing before, so rest assured you can learn this swing too. My SSD card ran out of storage, so we're back. Where was I? Okay, yeah, I used to have my own, push load swing with my legs, but I learned to do the elastic based swing, so I know you can do it too, and I've seen countless other players do it as well. So, does the stretch shortening cycle only apply to power, or can it improve other aspects of my game as well? It's a great question, and while the stretch shortening cycle primarily does enhance your power, it can actually improve your overall efficiency and fluidity of movement. So by harnessing the natural elasticity of your muscles, you can achieve smoother and more consistent strokes, which can positively impact your accuracy and control during matches. And this is what's going to give you that nice, smooth, silky, natural whip to your stroke. Now you might be wondering, how do I tap into this stretch shortening cycle? Oh, by the way, low-key plug for myself. I do teach juniors one-on-one full-time, and we can do it online. We can do a hybrid in-person online. It really has worked great with the past students I've worked with. These some incredible results. Discuss if we're going to be a great fit to take your junior to the next level. Back to what we were talking about. You might be wondering, how do I tap into this stretch shortening cycle to get 50% more in my strokes? Well, you can actually create the most stretch by having a stroke that is hip-centric. By using your hips to pull everything else along and stretch the muscles, you can create more stretch and more power. You're going to hear a lot of people talking about using, shoulder rotation for power and directing the shot. Well, we don't do that here. All right, we just don't. By saying hip-centric, we mean that the stroke is led and initiated by the hip movement in both directions, back and forward, not the shoulders, okay? Very important to note that. We don't actively think about turning our shoulders back or rotating them forward. They will naturally pull and stretch back and a certain amount in the backswing and a certain amount in the follow-through. Okay, they're probably going to rotate a lot more in the follow-through because the speed of them is going to be a lot faster. But you do not need to actively think about rotating your shoulders, okay, in either direction. In fact, you should really try to resist shoulder rotation in the backswing because what you're going to end up doing is create more stretch and separation. And the more stretch you create, the more potential energy you create. So the more you can separate your hips and shoulders, the better, which is why it's so important to develop great core strength. And I'm going to release a future video on the best core exercise that I do to develop an incredible hip-shoulder separation to really take advantage of the elastic swing. But that'll be for the future. Now, if you want to create more power, you need to create more opportunities for pulling and stretching separations to occur, which is why this next point is so critical to understand. That this separation phenomenon does not apply to just your hips and shoulders, but to every part of your body where pulling and stretching can occur. There should also be separation between your shoulder and your arm, the arm and the wrist and the racket, okay? Now, how do you do that? Great question. You are killing me. You got great questions today. Okay, keep them coming. So how do you do it? By having a delay between all the pieces. The hip should move first in the backswing, then the shoulders, then the arm, then the racket tip. There should be a lag for everything. Then in the forward swing, you want to move the hips first, delay the shoulders from moving, hence creating hip-shoulder separation. Then the shoulders will move a little bit. Then the arm will be pulled and stretched. Then the wrist is going to be pulled and stretched. Then the racket will be pulled and stretched. I hope you're getting the point, right? So note that you can just pull and stretch with the hips and treat the shoulder, arm, hand, and racket as one piece, just like that. Totally fine. Or you can treat all of them as individual pieces like that. It's going to create two different looking strokes. But if you consider them as all individual pieces, you're going to get the whip back effect of the racket happening later in the stroke, a lot more like Federer. And that's what I've done to my stroke change from, 2 pieces to a several piece elastic base swing, and my racket flip back is way closer to the ball and the contact rather than way in the back of my stroke. You want to create the most opportunities for stretch to occur, like I've said. So if you pull the racket back before you allow the full stretch to occur like that, and then do this, you're missing out on maximizing your power. All right. So that's why pulling the racket back and forcing racket lag is kind of funny, and it doesn't really work, because while you are pulling the racket back and you're adding tension, like, it's happening in an unnatural, unelastic way. And while many other online coaches will tell you not to pull the racket back, you now have been empowered with the scientific explanation of why you should not forcefully pull the racket back. Like I said, allow it to naturally stretch back. Okay? And that occurs by pulling and stretching. Okay? So, what should you do instead of pulling the racket back? I knew you'd have another great question. Great job. You're going to leave the racket tip forward. Okay? Leave it forward, especially on that take back. All right? Leave it forward. And as the arm stretches, okay? When the racket's flinging back, but you're going to create so much stretch that the recoil and contraction of the muscles when it stretches back is going to be so much bigger, and hence it's going to create more power. So leave that racket tip forward, and as you stretch out towards the hit, that racket's going to fling back so hard that when it recoils, it's going to be bam, boom, big ball. So if you treat the hips, shoulders, and arm, wrist, and hand, and racket as all individual pieces that can pull and stretch using the preceding piece, rather than treating the shoulders, arm, wrist, hand, and racket as one piece, right? So separating all of these into individual pieces, you can create more opportunities for pulling and stretching. Hence, you create more opportunities for power creation. Now, I did tell you I had a secret that I was going to reveal that took my elastic base swing to the next level. While many people are going to get wrong about the elastic base swing, is that you want to remain in a stretch state with the muscles, which is just, don't do that. Because remember, the power in the stretch shortening cycle is created by the stretch, but it is unleashed by the contraction. So if you aren't contracting the muscle, then you're losing out on the potential 50% power boost, right? So after the stretch occurs, you do want to contract the muscle. When you pull your hips forward, you will feel the stretch, and you'll want to contract that muscle and pull that arm forward, right? So you're gonna pull with the hip, you're gonna feel the stretch right in your chest and in your shoulder, and then you want to contract it, okay? And you're gonna notice how much arm speed you have compared if you were just to pull with your arm without the initial stretch first, and vice versa. You're gonna notice how much power you have when you pull and stretch and then contract versus just pulling and stretching with no contraction. Now, of course, it is important to time this all correctly. If your stretch phase is way too long, you actually end up losing power. So making sure that the contraction happens right after the stretch is crucial. Now, there is an additional mechanism that you must do if you want to get the absolute maximum benefits out of an elastic base swing. You're going to need to watch this next video here.